Today, we're diving into one of the most empowering topics there is, how we can take back a huge amount of control over our health just by understanding what's on our plate. We're going to see how the food we eat can either build a fortress against disease or, sometimes without us even realizing it, supply the enemy. I want to start with this idea because it's so powerful. Just think of your body as a garden, right? And you are the gardener. Now, we can't always control the random, unlucky seeds of disease that might land there, but what we can control is the environment, the soil where those seeds land. And that is incredibly empowering. So, before we can start cultivating that really healthy soil, we've got to identify and pull out the weeds. And believe it or not, some of the biggest culprits are hiding in plain sight, right there in our kitchens. So let's start with a silent, totally invisible threat. What if I told you that a top-tier carcinogen could be lurking in your trail mix or your peanut butter? It's not some additive or a chemical you've probably heard of. Nope, it's something way more subtle. The answer is aflatoxins. And look, these aren't just any old mold. They're officially a Group 1 carcinogen. That's the highest risk category there is. They're invisible, and they love to grow on crops like peanuts and corn, especially when it's warm and humid. When we eat them, our liver has to work overtime to filter them out, and in that process, the toxin can directly damage the DNA of our liver cells. So the big takeaway here isn't that you have to give up nuts. Not at all. It's just about being a smart gatekeeper. Maybe avoid those questionable bulk bins where you have no idea how fresh things are, and trust your senses. If a nut looks shriveled or tastes stale, spit it out. And hey, maybe rotate your peanut butter with some almond or cashew butter from a good brand. Okay, on to our next threat. This one isn't about some external toxin we're adding to our bodies. It's about the actual fuel we give ourselves and how different cells use that fuel in profoundly different ways. And this is just a brilliant way to illustrate the difference. A healthy cell, it's like a super efficient hybrid car. It sips fuel, uses oxygen, and gets the most energy possible with very little waste. But a cancer cell, it's a total gas guzzler. It's sloppy, it's inefficient, and it actually rejects oxygen, preferring to just guzzle and ferment sugar for fast, wasteful growth. This gas guzzler tendency actually has a scientific name, the Warburg effect. It's a key metabolic signature of pretty much all cancer cells. They are uniquely programmed to thrive on sugar. They can even have way more glucose receptors on their surface, which lets them just snatch it right out of your bloodstream faster than your healthy cells can. So when you eat refined carbs or sugary foods, you set off this dangerous 1-2 punch. First, you create a tidal wave of glucose in your blood, which is basically an open buffet for those sugar-hungry cancer cells. Then, your body releases insulin to deal with all that sugar. But here's the thing. Insulin isn't just a storage hormone, it's a powerful growth signal that screams at all of your cells to grow and divide. So you're basically giving the enemy both fuel and a giant green light. All right, so we've covered hidden molds and metabolic fuel. Now let's talk about the chemicals that get created through modern food processing and even some of our everyday cooking habits. Just let that number sink in for a moment. 18%. A huge analysis of over 800 studies found that eating just 50 grams of processed meat a day, we're talking less than 2 slices of bacon or a single hot dog, was linked to an 18% increased risk of colorectal cancer. That's a massive, statistically significant finding. So what's going on here? Well, the problem is in the preservatives, specifically nitrates. Inside our gut, these nitrates get converted into compounds called nitrosamines, and they act just like a Trojan horse. They get into our system looking harmless, like food, but then they release these compounds that directly damage the delicate cells lining our colon, messing with our genetic code. Now let's switch gears and look at fats. This chart shows a shift that is just staggering. Our ancestors evolved on a diet with a roughly 1-to-1 balance of inflammatory omega-6 fats and anti-inflammatory omega-3s. But today, thanks to industrial seed oils like corn, soy, and sunflower oil, that ratio is completely out of whack, sitting at a pro-inflammatory 20-to-1. So why does this crazy imbalance even matter? Well, this constant flood of omega-6 fats creates a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. A good way to think of it is like biological rust that's slowly corroding a car's frame. This constant state of damage and repair creates a chaotic environment where mistakes in cell replication are much more likely, and that gives cancer a fertile ground to grow. And finally, let's talk about alcohol. The main danger isn't actually the ethanol itself, but what our body turns it into. See, the liver processes alcohol into a substance called acetaldehyde. This stuff is a potent toxin that directly damages our DNA. But it also does something else. It gets in the way of our body's ability to repair that DNA. It's basically sending the repair crews home right after the damage is done.
Okay, we've identified the threats. And I know that can feel a little overwhelming, but this is where it gets exciting. Now we get to pivot from defense to offense. Let's talk about the practical, powerful steps you can take to build that healthy, resilient soil.
The key to our whole offensive strategy is a Nobel Prize-winning concept called autophagy. It literally means self-eating, and it's your body's brilliant built-in quality control and recycling program. It's the cleanup crew that goes around, finds old, damaged, and potentially cancerous cells, and just dismantles them for parts. It's amazing. But here's the crucial part. There's an on-off switch. Your body is either in growth and storage mode, or it's in clean and repair mode. It really can't do both at the same time. So when we're constantly eating, insulin is high, and we're stuck in growth mode. Autophagy, that essential cleanup process, only gets activated when we give our body a break from food, which allows our insulin levels to fall. So this all comes down to a really simple 3-part battle plan. Number 1, compress your eating window. Give your body a 12 to 16-hour break from food every day to turn on that cleanup crew. Number 2, prioritize fiber, which helps slow down sugar absorption. And number 3, shift your fuel source. Focus on healthy fats and protein to starve the cancer's favorite food while you nourish your healthy cells.
And look, this doesn't have to be some radical overhaul you do overnight. Look at these simple first moves. Swapping processed meat for some fresh chicken, choosing olive oil instead of those seed oils, finishing your last meal a few hours before you go to bed. Every single one is a small, tactical decision that makes a real difference.
Which brings us right back to where we started. This isn't about fear, it's not about being perfect. It's about empowerment. It's about remembering that you are the gardener of your own body, and you have the power every single day to tend to your soil. Because ultimately, every single meal is a set of instructions you send to your cells. You're either signaling chaos, inflammation, and uncontrolled growth, or you're signaling stability, repair, and health. That choice, it happens 3 times a day. What signal will you choose to send?